Welcome to the Homesteaders of America podcast, where we encourage simple living, hard work, natural health care, real food, and building an agrarian society. If you're pioneering your way through modern noise and conveniences, and you're an advocate for living a more sustainable and quiet life, this podcast is for you. Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm your host, Amy Fuel, and I'm the founder of the Homesteaders of America organization and annual events. If you're not familiar with us, we are a resource for homesteading education and online support, and we even host a couple of in-person events each year, with our biggest annual event happening right outside the nation's capital here in Virginia every October. Check us out online at homesteadersofamerica.com. Follow us on all of our social media platforms and subscribe to our newsletter so that you can be the first to know about all things HOA. That's short for Homesteaders of America. Don't forget that we have an online membership that gives you access to thousands, yes, literally thousands of hours worth of information and videos. It also gets you discount codes, an HOA decal sticker when you sign up, and access to event tickets before anyone else. All right, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Homesteaders of America podcast. This week I have the notorious Justin Rhodes with me. Welcome, Justin.
Yes, thank you.
So I don't know, for those of you watching on YouTube, you might be able to see his name at the bottom says the Birdman, which is awesome. Justin, there might be people who don't know who you are on our podcast. So why don't you give us the rundown real quick?
Well, I've taught and inspired tens of thousands of people at this point to grow their own food. We're in Western North Carolina, my children are the fourth generation on this farm, 75 acres. We're probably using about 12 of it. The rest of it is pretty steep. And we got into homesteading just to a healthy lifestyle, be connected to our food, grow the most healthiest food possible. And then we enjoyed it so much. It's like, we want to share that with the world and we want to go pro with that. It's like, that's been a thing I've done all my life is I've found a passion and then just wanted to make a career out of it. And that's what we've been able to do, but simply just sharing what we're doing, teaching what we've learned, and it's worked so far.
Yeah. So those of you who have been to an HOA event, you've seen Justin at almost every single one of them. And then for those of you who are coming for the first time this year, we have a lot of new people this year that jumped on tickets before anybody else. So you'll get to actually see Justin for the first time if you haven't seen him at another event. So make sure you stop by his booth, which is super cool and interactive, and meet him and everyone. So funny story, I knew of Justin Rhodes before Justin Rhodes was cool. So I was in the blogging world and I remember someone saying, hey, this guy is putting together a documentary about chickens.
Wow.
And, so I knew about you starting with was it permaculture chickens? Was that the first documentary you did?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so the documentary thing was new. That was over a decade ago, right? That was or almost.
That was 2006.
It was a while.
So yeah, we're getting pretty close. 2006, 7. No, that would have been 2016, not 6. Yeah.
So your permaculture chickens kind of set you into this career, right? So that was your first thing, or were you on YouTube first?
No, the permaculture chickens was the first thing, and that was our venture into this. That was a Kickstarter too. We had 7 people on our email list going into that. And it's funny, you speak of somebody talking to you about it and hearing about it. It was interesting. I guess what permaculture chickens did, one really good thing that we did a really good polished video. At that time I wasn't even videoing myself. So I had to hire that out and take the chance and take the risk. And Kickstarter enabled that because we had zero money. We had minus money. And, the concept of Kickstarter is, hey, I'll create this if everybody gets behind it and backs this and basically pre-orders. You pre-order and it gets successful, then I'll go and make it. But, it must have just been, looking back on it, it was, I would have never known this or never could have guessed it. Chickens, it was just right. Getting Joel involved. So Joel Salatin, at that time he was well known. So getting somebody that was well known since I wasn't yet. And then working on that Kickstarter a month before it launched and working with other people who had audiences. So I always say, if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have an audience, borrow someone else's. And I mean, borrow, like you're indebted to them. Like you
Right.
don't just ask, like you find a way to serve this influencer and get people on board and excited about this. And I think they just got excited just because it was a really good video and a really good project and just something that was needed at the time. And for whatever reason, and you can't always explain it, Amy, there was buzz, and that would
Yeah.
have been your friend telling you about it. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it at the right moment too, because there's kind of this foundational group, I feel like, of homesteaders who, they're the old school homesteaders who started kind of pushing homesteading in a more prevalent way to get it out into media and get it out into the open, and make this lifestyle people more aware of it. And so when I think of those foundational homesteaders, you're one of them that I think of because
Oh,
of the permaculture chickens documentary. And so let's kind of talk about you and what you do business wise, because there's a lot of homesteaders who want to do exactly what you're doing, not necessarily with YouTube.
yeah.
We see you on YouTube, but you have a much more expansive business setup with your farm and just what you do. So I wonder if you can talk just a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's so many things. And I will say that there's never been a more ripe opportunity to make a living on a homestead through content creation. I mean, Joel's the OG. He's writing books. That's content creation. Beth and Sean
Yeah.
Doherty, how'd you find about them, Amy? Probably through their book, and then you got them into the.
Yep.
And even if they come as speakers and have a speaking career, that's content. So it doesn't have to be just YouTube. YouTube is extremely hot. It's as
Hmm.
hot as it ever has been, and is more ripe than it ever has been with YouTube Shorts and things like that. They're just YouTube's killing it there, and there's so much opportunity there. I mean, it gives me chill bumps to talk about it. The land of opportunity that is YouTube. But there's also, what are we doing here? We're podcasting. You're gonna capture a video. You're gonna capture
Hmm.
audio. You can take those and turn those into short 15-second, 1-minute clips that goes on Reels, Shorts, TikToks, whatever. But there's podcasting, there's video creation, there's book writing, there's blogging. Think about the opportunities there in blogging. People say it's dead, but perhaps it's going to be on the rise. There's things going on with AI, artificial intelligence, that who knows what that will do for blogging, and how blogs can be better identified for what really is in the content. Search engines getting
Hmm.
smarter because of AI and stuff like that. So I think there's opportunity there. Somebody who just likes to take pictures or short videos. There's Instagram, and even on the such a platform as YouTube, it's even more out of the box than it ever was, because when I came on the platform, well, first it was mostly instructionals and then style videos, and then we came on and we introduced the vlog to homesteading, which is more of a just lifestyle shots, like a long form Instagram story type or an Instagram story
Hmm.
type of video that's on YouTube, just little updates throughout the day. And then, so that's a vlog style, but you could do skits, you could do straight up teaching and lecturing, short, long, put a documentary up there, whatever. But now there's even more opportunities because of the shorts, the vertical video posts that is on Instagram, Reels, YouTube Shorts. I'm a little leery of TikTok, so I'm not mentioning it much. I deleted it from my phone. I think it's mine.
I
I don't think
deleted mine too.
it's not minding its own business, is it?
No, so here's a funny story. I told this to Joel on a podcast a few podcasts back. We actually got a TikTok for HOA because every homesteader in the world was like, get TikTok for HOA. And I'm like, I don't even like this stuff. Like, I don't even understand it, but I got it. And within 3 days, we were kicked off TikTok.
Oh,
And everybody's like, well, yeah. They're like, well, how did you get kicked off? Nobody gets kicked off TikTok. I'm like, I don't know. Let me try again. So, I mean, I couldn't even contact anybody
yeah.
because there's nobody to contact. It's like nothing. So I started a new one for HOA, and 3 days later, we got kicked off again. And I'm like, well, this is not meant to be. We're getting off
They're
of here.
very strict. They're
So
very
it's
strict about
crazy.
sensitive content. I mean, you can't even show a gun, let alone using it to kill an animal.
We didn't even do that. We posted a video about a dairy cow, like how to get started with your dairy cow.
Isn't that
And
funny?
then a video, I think it was about gardening. And that was very offensive to them.
Well,
So we are no longer
that's
allowed on
that's a funny
TikTok.
world we're in now because even YouTube's getting that way. They're getting that way a little bit. At first
Hmm.
it was okay. You can't monetize, and it was just monetizing. It wasn't necessarily pulling them down. They just weren't letting us run ads on them to make money off that. You couldn't do that with butchering. Now it's even we had a peaceful cow birth, and that got flagged. I don't know if somebody flags it or whatever, but a human reviewed it and said, yes, this is shocking. And it
What?
wasn't even any blood involved. It wasn't even any drama around it. And some vegan in San Diego decided that was shocking and pulled
Yeah.
it. So, I feel like I've been back and forth on this. These platforms are certainly that was one reason we created our own platform with Abundance
Hmm.
Plus back in 2017 when they started pulling the butchering and gun videos. I was
Hmm.
like, okay, we're gonna have to have some diversity here, and because what if our channel got pulled? Well,
Right.
we would need some private platform where people could be, and so that's end up where that came from. But I look at it as a massive way, an opportunity to reach people, and I've been to where I've pushed the envelope where I show the chicken but just everything but what I think they'll pull from the chicken butchering, and like really trying to push it and be a rebel. But then I've backed off of that, and it's more of how do you turn a problem into solution? I mean, that's one thing they've taught me in permaculture, right? Turn a problem into solution. The core of the problem is the seed of the solution. Yeah, it is, because think of an avocado. The core is the seed for the solution. So it became, just show what we can on YouTube. It's their
Right.
platform. If we're going to be true libertarians,
Hmm.
they can do what they want with it, and we, as freedom people, can choose not to conform and be there and go somewhere else, or
Right.
obey the rules. So one thing I've decided is, okay, we'll obey the rules, but we'll say, hey, if you want the uncensored version,
Hmm.
it's on Abundance Plus, and so we'll get some members there. Yeah, so thinking about it along that lines.
So, so let's kind of back up a little bit. So you started with documentaries. Can you kind of take us through quickly how you've built this homesteading empire essentially and how you've diversified your income? Because, you hear this, oh, Justin Rhodes is making money and blah 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 blah. But you've put a lot of work into this, Justin. Like you've really worked to get
Yeah.
where you've gotten. So why don't you kind of tell people how this is built on top of each other to get to where you are now? And then, talking about YouTube, like what's next? Are you going to pour more time into, different avenues? What are you seeing trending in the future?
Yeah. So to get to this point and to speak to everyone, I was certainly where they are, or even worse. We were living on food assistance. We were growing our food to get by. We were renting a spare bedroom, not a spare house, a spare bedroom on Airbnb, and we were having people from all over the world come and stay in our house, just so we could make rent. I was hauling the trash for the landlord, who was my dad, who had two other rentals. I would haul the trash for everybody as part of the rent, mow the grass, everything you can think to be. I would go to the stores and intercept the food before it went to the grocery store. I'll come every Wednesday and get what you're throwing away, and we'd feed that to well, we'd go through it first, and then we'd feed it to the animals. Max out credit cards. And if there's one takeaway of how I've been successful, it's by stepping under mentors through books and podcasts.
Hmm.
And I would just consume it like crazy. And I think if you want to succeed, well, you've got to be good at the thing you want to teach or share or document. So for me, that was homesteading. So, and you always got to want to continue being good on that. So you're going to need to study that. You're going to need to know that. You're going to need to practice that. But you got to be good at one
Hmm.
more thing. Well, two more things. The second one would be the content. So you've got to be good at the content creation. So you've got to become a student of that too. Don't just listen to homesteading podcasts all day. Listen, if you're wanting to go in on YouTube, or you're not sure where you want to go in on, maybe you want to go in all on Twitter. Look up the podcasts and the books that are on that subject. And And so then you'd have to be good at the craft. And then you need to be good at the marketing. So I remember early on, I'd be doing dishes and I would be listening to Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn. I'd be listening to the Tim Ferriss, his podcast. So consuming those podcasts, audiobooks, guys in the car. This was before smartphones were out or I could afford them. I used to burn podcasts to CDs and listen to in my car and just absorb it. So if there's a quick win out there, it's put yourself under mentors, and they don't have to be physical. They can very much so be podcast, audiobooks, and books. Take what you want to do, find somebody, and it's available in the world today. Even if you just go online, you could consume it online. Invest in it with your time and money. It's going to be worth it. And so for permaculture chickens, where'd that come from? Well, a mentor knew we were struggling, so he gave me this book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And at the time, I'm struggling with Lyme disease. We're struggling financially. I got a bunch of kids. I felt like I only had 4 hours. And so I read this book, and basically it's just about being smart, just thinking through things, taking advantage of modern technology, and really challenging the norm. And what came out of that is the concept of creating a book video companion and selling that. And in the book, it had mentioned something about Kickstarter. So I said, long story short, I explored all different kinds of businesses, Amy. One of the business ideas I explored was I was going to have this endurance race where we had this bull. You put a red tag in it, and that's the race. Everybody chases the bull until finally somebody gets it, because humans are endurance animals. Nothing else. We're the best endurance animal there is. So that would be kind of fun, right? I even called about insurance for that, Amy. I was having a hard time getting
insurance.
That
was outrageous.
that was the okay. I can't get insurance. I was calling the rodeo companies to see if I couldn't get insurance for this.
Oh my goodness.
I guess the point there is, though, have ideas.
You're going to have a lot of bad ideas, right?
You are. And you won't know it until you explore it a little bit. So don't just, because I could have sat on that and said, this is a great idea. Oh, look at me. It's a great idea.
Right.
And I could have just went all crazy into it too. No, I said I think this is a good idea or a reasonable idea. Okay, I'll need an insurance. I'll call. It took less than 10 minutes to figure out this is not a good idea.
No, not at all.
And, we explored looking at why we were going to buy a Y bike business. These little bikes that kids can get on and there's no pedals. Our kids were doing successful with that. We found the site where you could just buy businesses. How about that one? Buy a business that's already in place. But finally, we figured out from the 4-Hour Workweek, let's create a content business. But then what was it, Amy? We finally landed on chickens, but basically because I felt like I knew the most about chickens and I wanted to learn more about chickens. And that's the thing too. People are hiding behind the excuse of I'm not an expert. Or, I'm not as good as Justin. I don't have a pole barn like Justin Rhodes or machines or whatever. You're just hiding behind that excuse. And if you've learned that you can keep eggs on the counter unwashed for 4 weeks and 4 to 6 weeks and they're still good, you've learned something.
Right.
You can then teach that.
Yeah.
And be bold in it and okay with it, because Amy, you might say you can keep eggs on the counter for 8 weeks. Somebody else might say 2 weeks. Somebody might say, oh no, you got to wash them and put them in the fridge. You ain't going to please everybody. Nobody's going to agree with you. Right, Amy? And you can follow experts right on Instagram about health, about farming, and have two very smart people disagree.
Yep. Well, one of the best ways too is the best way to learn something is to teach it. And I have found I know more and retain more when I teach someone about something. And so I think that's a really good point that you just made. If you know the basics, you having to teach something causes you to be more accountable, which causes you to learn more. And the more you teach it, the more you retain it and the more experience you have. And so, there are a lot of people who they think they're not good enough or they're not smart enough to do this. And it's in everything. It's not just in homesteading. But the reality is that we're actually extremely smart to do these things, especially as we're learning them. And as we teach them, we learn more. It's incredible how the human mind works.
Right. Well, if you want to talk about
Yeah.
mindset, I would encourage folks to get out of this scarcity mindset and get into an abundance mindset. And one of the best ways
Oh,
you can
yeah.
do that is stop saying can't.
Mhm.
And instead of saying, "Oh, I can't do that," you got two choices. Either own it and say, "No, I won't." That's one, because maybe you don't want to do
Yep.
it, and so you can't. So owning that and you just saying "I won't" is empowering yourself. Because like, what kind of person are you to say "I can't" versus a
Mhm.
person that says "No, I won't do that"? That's so much more empowering and positive to your self being than saying "I can't." But if it is something you really want or want to do, you need to say, "How can I?" I think
Mhm.
I learned this from Daniel Pink in To Sell Is Human, his book To Sell Is Human. You say, "How can I?" and you write down 6 things of how can I. So maybe you want to buy the property next door and it's too expensive. It's like unimaginably expensive. Well, either say, "No, I won't do it." Just own that. Or say, don't give yourself an excuse. "Oh, I'm only working 9 to 5. I only make this much
Right.
money. Oh, I've got 5 kids. Oh, I've got this disability." No, stop that. And start saying, "How can I?" and write it out. One of your lists, one of your items might be rob a bank. Just write it down. Keep going. Go gambling. Go to Las Vegas and win the lottery. You might have some really dumb ideas, but you need to give yourself permission to write down dumb ideas. It's a lot easier to make a
Mhm.
mistake on paper than in real life. Write down all these crazy, wild ideas because it frees up your mind, and write all these out, and then start experimenting on these. I love to fail, but fail small. So it didn't take too much to call the rodeo company and find out I can't get insurance. So it was a failure. Okay. But it was failing small. It wasn't like I went
Right.
all out and got investors and spent $1 million on this event and then no one showed up.
Mhm.
Okay. So I would say going into that as an example, going into that Kickstarter or having the 4-hour work week, deciding I needed a video piece and a companion book and deciding on chickens. Then going into the Kickstarter, what do? I mean, I was at the time I wasn't online. That Facebook was hot then, and that was about the only social media there was. I didn't even have a Facebook. So what
Mhm.
do? I don't know anything about Kickstarter. I literally went online. I think I got 1 or 2 articles, and then I literally went to the library, Amy, because we could not afford to buy a $14 book.
Mhm.
So I went to the library and checked out this book on how to do Kickstarters. And between that book and 2 articles, came up with a plan for a launch and just followed what I had learned from other people who had gone before me. That's really all it
Yeah.
is. This brings up a lot of thoughts, thinking about the past, about where we're going next. So I feel like, after what you said with permaculture chickens, I was inspired by the movie Permaculture Orchard.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was just a well put together. It was like it's not quite a course. It is more like a documentary. I appreciate that you called Permaculture Chickens documentary. It's just more cinematic. It
Mhm.
was a beautiful film that where you can learn something from, and it's succinct. It gets right to the point. And I was inspired. I was inspired by Permaculture Orchard. So if I feel like I was kind of, I don't know if I should say before a time or top of the game or good timing there with that, Permaculture Orchard was really good timing, or even
Right.
before its time.
Yeah.
And then I got into YouTube, and not on purpose, not even being under a mentor or reading it in a book. Like, you got to get on, it was just, we're creating content. At the time, we're writing blogs, and we didn't even foresee that the blog business was going to be more of a struggle down the road. But we were writing blogs, and then at the end of each blog, we'd have a little bonus where if people signed up for it, they'd have to give their email and they'd get something free. And then we're building our email list, right? And
Right.
then we discover a need and we can create a service or product to service that need and then pitch the audience. So that's how that's
Mhm.
how the content, that's a model for a content creation business. And then Rebecca saw this couple who the man found out his wife was pregnant. he found out. He snuck up one of those pea stick pregnancy tests in the toilet, and she didn't know it. And he found out. So it went viral because the man was getting to say we're pregnant versus the one. It's always the woman doing the pregnancy test and telling the man. And that went viral, and she started following them, and she realized, oh wait, they're putting up videos every day. What is this? And she started following them on YouTube, and I could hear her follow. That was Sam and Nia. If anybody's an old school YouTube fan. And I could hear them talking. I never watched, but I could hear them. And every once in a while, I'd glimpse, and it just looked like he was walking around with his phone. And I at least thought that was an interesting model. Mm-hmm. And the business guys that I was following were saying, you remember Twitter's Periscope? Periscope was the first live app.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, now we take it for granted. You can go live on any of these platforms. Right. But it was a big deal to be able to go live from just your phone. And they were saying, just like people are saying TikTok's where it's at, they were saying Periscope's where it's at. And nobody knows what Periscope is nowadays, right? It's totally gone. And maybe TikTok will follow, who knows. But I got in on that, and, I went in hard. But, still failing small, Amy, because I didn't quit blogging. I didn't quit what was for sure working. But I started experimenting with these periscopes and did one every day for like 150 days, from butchering a chicken live to milking my cow out there in the morning. And somewhere in there, somebody said, you ought to put these on YouTube. And between that and Rebecca finding Sam and Nia, we just gave it a shot. We just got us I think we got a G7X by Canon. It's just a little point and shoot camera, because I'm thinking we were pretty sure we were going to enjoy this. And we tried it, and it felt so awkward, Amy. It felt just so weird. And it's just so anti-homesteading and country boy lifestyle to like film yourself. Like, it's selfie at a next level. We already feel, us 40-year-olds already feel a little weird taking selfies. Like, who are we, And now I'm gonna put a camera and videotape myself. Who do you think you are? But how do you know? So I tried it, and I made one video. How do I edit? Guys, how do you edit? What film thing to use? Right. I don't know. Ask Mr. Google Pants. Ask Mrs. BoobTube. Do something. And so to edit, how do we do it? Well, we kind of knew this guy from the business world. He had this course, do it yourself, DIY video guy or something. And we got his course on how to edit. Now you could get a course. You could go on YouTube. There's all different kinds of platforms now where you can go and get courses. So that's no excuse. We were walking out of the Apple store one day. We had had to go get our iPad repaired. And we had 4 kids at the time. And it's pretty much guaranteed with 4 kids, you got your hands full, Everybody's got to say that. How many kids you got, Amy?
We have 3 right now.
Okay, so you already getting it?
Oh yeah. And we have different. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Let's stop on that for a second. We have lots of age differences. And so it's like, oh my goodness, they're not even like, a normal age span. Like, I'm dealing with teenage hormones, and I got a, 10-month-old. And I'm like, wait a second, this is not how this is supposed to work.
We're in that too. So, your hands are literally full, because we're probably walking out of that store and the baby's in this hand, holding the hand here, and you're trying to carry the iPod. But this well-meaning lady, you got your hands full. How are you going to pay for them all to go to college? And I thought about that, and I thought, that's funny. I guess she didn't see what I was holding in my hand, because I'm walking out with the world's information in a little pad like this called the iPad. And now all the world's information is in something this small. So we don't need no college.
Right?
They got the world's information right here. So that's what I'm saying to these people listening is, you don't know how to edit, but you can find out in 10 minutes or or less.
I did. It's true. It's true. For free. For free you can do it. So, so it's crazy that you don't even have to buy a course like Justin Rhodes did. You can go on YouTube and you can watch 30 videos on how to edit a video. And, I don't know about you, but are you finding, because of this, we're going to change this topic for just one second. Because of this,
Yeah.
I'm finding that people are less likely to look stuff up and they just want you to tell them how to do it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, like go on YouTube, figure it out. You know, there's stuff there. And do you have that issue? Do a lot of people just come to you and ask you because you've already done it? Or
That's funny. I will sometimes, Amy. What's funny is because we have member texting through Abundance Plus with premium, and a lot of people are reaching out to me to question. I end up becoming their Google service, Amy, because
that's funny.
It'll be so specific or so niche. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I just
you just get on Google. Oh my, no, you don't. Oh my word, that's hilarious.
Now listen. Here's the caveat there. At least, and this, at least as somebody with experience, you know how to interpret Mr. Google Pants,
right?
Or to how to take which answer, because he's going to give you like 1.5 million answers. So I could see how maybe the novice, even then, wouldn't understand how to search Google Pants. Who do you trust? Yeah. And that's end up what it comes down to, Amy, because you bring up something interesting. Because of all this information, people really desire an authority, right? Somebody that they can connect to and trust, and they know they're not perfect. And so, like I was telling you earlier, even in the nicheified things, like I eat mostly meat, I'm in the carnivore world. Even carnivore guys, which is like an extreme sect of the health world, even carnivore guys can disagree and butt heads. Like, do we eat honey? Do we not? Oh, I would never have a cheat. You should never have a cheat day. It does this and this and this to your body. Oh, you should have cheat days because it challenges your body and it's a healthy stress. And these are two very brilliant people. You want to pick one.
Yeah,
you do. At the end of the day, you have to pick one because there's too many other things, and you have to just say, I'm picking it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to learn the foundation of what they've taught me and shown me. And in the meantime, maybe explore my own ways. And you can end up mixing things. It's really beautiful. For example, our winter system for our chickens, it's got Joel in it. It's got J.M. Fortier in it, and it's got Paul Gauci in it, Back to Eden. So Joel puts his chickens in the high tunnel over the winter. So we do what Joel does and does that. Joel puts 18 inches of deep bedding and is done for the winter. And then in the spring removes it all and puts it in a manure spreader, puts it out in the field. We get a little different. On the homestead level, we're not packing it in with as much chicken, so it's not going to get as much manure. It's not going to break down as well. Our high tunnel is too big for the amount of chickens we're going to have. So I put about 4 inches of wood chips, and that's plenty to last them the whole winter. It doesn't break down like Joel's does. But it's like Paul Gauci in the sense of now after the chickens leave, we have 4 inches of a Back to Eden garden. So we have 4 inches of a wood mulch garden. So we don't remove the material. And we plant the crops down into that. When we move the chickens out, so where's J.M. Fortier come in, which is a master gardener? When we move the chickens out in the spring, we're not quite ready to plant. So we put down a silage tarp, which is very much J.M., I feel like, was pioneering that idea. And then that keeps the weeds from coming up in through the shallow wood chips and going. So you have to pick somebody and form a foundation before you start making too many changes. Yeah. But you can learn from all different kinds of people and make something your own. And even at now, I would imagine we dare even call it original.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for listening. We're going to take a quick break to introduce you to one of our sponsors that has been with HOA for a few years, and that's Premier One Supplies. At Premier One, they've been providing electric fencing and electric netting, sheep and goat supplies, clippers and shears, ear tags, poultry products, and expert advice for over 40 years. Whether it's electric netting for your chickens or cattle or horses or poultry, or clippers and shears, and even poultry supplies such as fencing, feeders, waterers, egg handling supplies. hatchery items. They have it all. They are a one-stop shop for all things homesteading, just like many of our sponsors. Check out Premier One Supplies at premieronesupplies.com, and don't forget to check them out at the HOA event this year. All right, so you started with the documentary. You've moved into all these different marketing, blogging, newsletters. Now you're on YouTube. Now you have Abundance Plus.
Yeah.
So and then you've got a lot of courses and stuff on Abundance Plus too. So you've leveled up on your teaching. But what now? So you brought up at the beginning of the podcast, we were talking a little bit about how YouTube has some censorship now, especially in the homesteading world. So some people are leery, like, why should I get on YouTube if they're just going to censor? Is this a good business option? What do you kind of see trending in the future? Are you seeing a trend yet for something new? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I like this question. And what is next? So to calm everybody's fears with YouTube, I think it's okay. I think it's going to be good. It's going to be hard to beat them. So in a way, you join them and you take the challenge. And I think challenges are the birth of some of the greatest creativity that we've ever experienced. So in the face of that challenge, I can't show butchering. How can you turn that into a solution? Well, I could create a little mini course or an ebook, and I've built my audience up on YouTube because there's 1,788,000 other things you can show on YouTube. So we tend as humans to look at the negative, and we tend to look at, oh no, this is what's coming, the bad, because that's how we survive for so long. Okay, you're looking out for the bad, but then we have to then train ourselves to say, okay, there's good here too, and there's a way to take advantage. There's a way to twist this bad into something good. So then I feel like I'm using it. I feel like I'm using YouTube because it's like, it's there. I post a video, and I posted a video the other day, and it got 100,000 views, and that's a lot for us. And that was on like 24 hours. I didn't promote it at all. YouTube did all that promotion. And so I just filmed today a video that's going out on YouTube as well. It won't do as well based on history. It might in the long run. It's an instructional video on how to raise turkeys. People are used to vlogs on my channel now, so that video will tank at first. But what I've noticed over time, those have a longer tail. They do better in the long run because they're just ripe with information. And YouTube is trying to figure out, who's this for? It's obviously not for his regular people, and so the YouTube machine is trying to figure out who it's for, and it's pushing it to the right people, and it goes out. So, and it's a good model as far as people can watch my YouTube channel for free, and that might be even more important now, as people are tightening their belts and cutting budgets, and that's affected Abundance Plus. That's brought down membership. Membership is not where it has always been, and I contribute to that. Some people just having to tighten up their belts and save some money. Oh yeah. But they could go to YouTube and watch things for free. They watch an ad, and then the creator gets 60% of that ad. Okay, and YouTube pushes out. So I'm going heavy in on YouTube, probably more than I ever have. I'm putting more thought and energy into how to please the folks watching my YouTube videos, so that then YouTube will send that out to even more people and reach a broader audience. I'm continually blown away. I was scrolling through some videos, and we have videos in 1 million plus range. I have 1 million subscribers, Amy. I would have never guessed we had that much interest in homesteading, but we do. And we haven't, Amy, here's the encouraging thing. I'll go to like a local plant sale where it's people picking up veggie starts to plant. Like, it's not like a homestead conference or something. Right. If I go to HOA, most everybody knows me, it seems. Right. But if I can go to the local plant store or little event, there'll be hundreds of people there, and maybe one person recognizes Rebecca and I. That's telling me we've only tapped the very tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. Yeah. There's so many more people that aren't online or aren't on YouTube or YouTube or whatever. So, one thing I've noticed, so what am I going to do? So we created our own platform to have some more control. And it turns out the audience doesn't like the censorship nonsense either.
Right.
They don't like to be parented by Facebook or YouTube. They want to make decisions for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'll decide if I want to watch a butchering. I'll decide if that's shocking or defensive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you to tell me?
Right.
I'll decide if this is appropriate for my kids.
Yeah.
So with Abundance Plus, it became a streaming platform with the eve of apps. I wasn't a big happy app guy, but when I first announced it, I was at HOA and I just casually mentioned it at the end of my talk, and people clapped. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I had no idea there would be so much excitement around an app. And there just was. And I came to that actually, Amy. I came to the idea of the app for my membership area because Jason and I were driving home from Polyface. Jason from Sutherland. We had just done a film shoot at Polyface. And he mentioned the show. Is it The Chosen? It's about Christ's life. I think it's called The Chosen. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah.
And you have to watch it on an app. That's how you consume it. It's not on cable. It's not on YouTube. I mean, maybe an episode or two, maybe clips, but and then it's free. And then I think it's the total church model. Pass the plate. Some people put in some money, and that funds it. Really, Some people they call it pay it forward. Yep. You can do different levels. And one cool thing about that is you get to a certain level, like you pay $1,000, you can be an extra in the movie.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. What I was seeing there was a lot of things. First of all, apps. So, we talked about went from blogging to YouTube, TV killed the radio star, YouTube killed the TV star. I'm seeing streaming and people having control of their own platforms killing the YouTube star. And, maybe it's not killing because radio is still around and radio is still doing pretty good. Rebecca just downloaded, she just got the app for Dr. Laura Swessinger or something like that, some therapist show that's on Sirius XM. It's an app. So there's all these things, that was once on the radio. Now it's an app through Sirius XM. Yeah. So where is it going? Is it going to these streaming platforms and these membership platforms? I don't know. There's a lot of them rising up. Yeah. That was the thing. There weren't many other vlogging homesteaders when we started. There was some people teaching and stuff. Wrangler Star and, Doug and Stacy, I think, were out there and some of those guys. But those were teaching.
Right.
And this was more lifestyle. And then it went on. So, and now, we got into the membership sites very early on. We had membership sites before there was really even great platforms for it.
Yeah.
And then apps came along and we said, we got to move to that. And we made a good decision. And now what? Because Instagram has memberships and you can join YouTube channels.
Right. Everything has memberships.
Everybody and their brothers doing memberships now. So what I see, and this has inspired me a lot in making, have you noticed something? Things outside of the homestead world are inspiring me to make these big moves. I'm seeing the trend by people who are maybe closer to what the trends might actually be. Because as homesteaders, we're down in the dirt, really, where we should be, and where our happy place is. Yeah. I just like making content. I don't like doing the marketing stuff now, and so I've gotten to a point. You do it at first, everything, and then you hire it out. And the first thing you hire out is a bookkeeper because you can't stand that. And then you get to where all of a sudden you have an editor and a filmer. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, because you're growing your business. Yeah. I told you earlier, I think before off camera, you either crush your dreams or expand your team. So you either dream small and downsize and blah, or you figure out a way to expand your team. So I see a trend of people coming up with physical mainstream products. So a lot of YouTubers like Mr. Beast coming up with his own snack line. He's one of the biggest. He is the biggest YouTuber. And then Logan Paul. These are not people. Logan Paul. Your average homesteader is not going to want to watch that guy.
Right.
Okay. Right. It's not going to be family friendly. They're not going to want to listen to Gary Vee with their kids. But that's going to be some motivational good stuff. You got to find the good stuff in it. So Logan Paul, Prime energy drinks. The Nelk Boys. You definitely not going to want to listen to that. It's certainly not with your kids, coming out with the beer Happy Dad. Okay. And then these companies being worth, because I had a podcast, I do a podcast too. It's on Abundance Plus, and I had Nathan Barry on, a business guy, and he talked about Mark Season, who is a health guy. He does Mark's Daily Apple. He was a blogger, and he got to where he was making $2 million a year. I mean, anybody would say that's very nice. One guy and maybe a handful of part-time and full-time virtual assistants or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, he then came up with a physical product, and many of you have heard of this, but you haven't heard of Mark, and it's called Primal Kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
You heard of Primal Kitchen? Yeah. Ranch? They'll do like a healthy salad dressing similar to ranch. Maybe it's avocado based and stuff like that. So Primal Kitchen, and he's got this whole line. Well, he ended up selling that for $200 million. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, to put that in perspective, Amy, you can put $5 million into an endowment and the S&P 500 and get 8% a year on that and pay yourself for the rest of ever, as long as there's an America,
right?
With a functioning economy, assuming that stays in place, you're going to live on $36,000 a month forever.
That's insane.
And still have $5 million in that account. Yeah. You're just going to live on the interest. So that's how much $200 million. So crazy. So I see people going with products. And so I think, well, what's my product? Is it I use this multi-tool every day. Is it a multi-tool? Is it a line of pork jerky? There's not a lot of, or I don't think there's any organic pork jerky. Is it a line of beef jerky? Is it something, Amy, where, what if it's homestead grown, Amy? How can we disrupt the food business? Like, how can we make buying local food even more convenient? The biggest hotelier in the world doesn't own one single hotel. It's called Airbnb. The biggest taxi service in the world, not one car. It's Uber. Okay. Yeah. So how can we Uberize grocery stores? So, is it, could a homesteader grow 2 pigs and have this, whatever brand it is, for lack of a better term, the Justin Rhodes stamp on these 2 pigs, and we're able to send that off, and they can contribute to the source for this pork jerky. Okay. There's no organic pork rinds around. I don't know. These are things. I'm in that stage, Amy, where I was thinking about what was my content product. Now I'm in the stage of what is going to be my physical product. Yeah. Is it an apron? Is it this hat? Like, you cannot buy this hat anymore. The guy who made this hat, these flat caps, is got, like, I ordered 10 from him and like paid extra because I knew he was done.
Wow.
So I'm in that stage of exploring some of these dumb ideas. So, and I need to think about how I need to explore those small. But how did Mark Season do that? Well, because he had somewhat of an audience, he had somewhat of a name. Maybe somebody at Whole Foods buyer was a fan of Mark. And that's how he got in at a bigger distribution. We taste that a little bit, Amy, when we go to publish our books and we partner with a publisher. Yep. I had our Mama's Helper send us a picture this morning. She was at the bookstore and she took a picture because there is my book in the kids section, front and center. Where are your shoes, Mr. Brown? And she's like tickled and takes a picture and sends me.
That's awesome.
That's kind of an example of what we're looking for, but like at a bigger, more mainstream level. And so we're early on in this, so I'm not promising anything to anybody, but I'm even brainstorming with you as a business lady, like what is this physical product that goes mainstream? Yeah. Or what is this product that disrupts an industry because we make it more convenient?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of stuff up in the air right now. I know for me, this has kind of been my year just sitting back because I have a little one. There's not a whole lot I can do other than kind of just fly on autopilot. And so that's given me time to look at trends right now. And so you mentioned blogging earlier, and I think you are right on with that. Like blogging, that's how I started with my homesteading content, was blogging, because I'm a writer naturally. And I got to the point where I was making money off of that blog content, and then YouTube took off and reels and shorts, the attention span of people. They would rather scroll through and watch a short video. And so we have seen blogging tank, but here's what I'm seeing happening, which is really interesting. In the beginning of blogging, we could blog about anything, right? We could just write. We didn't have to have any special content or keywords.
Yeah.
And then in order for the algorithm to pick you up, then you had to throw all your money and time into figuring out the best keywords for Google. You have to write it 10 times in your blog post for Google to pick it up. And, it took a lot of time to learn those things. But I did it, and the blog started making money. And then it's just, it started tanking again once video content really started perking up. But the interesting thing now is a few years later, now that the YouTube trend is kind of changing a little bit, writing is coming back up. But it's in the membership level that you just mentioned, which I think is really interesting. So now we're not necessarily blogging to appease the algorithm. Now we're getting paid to blog, which is, you have Substack and various different platforms that are doing that. And I was blown away. Just wanted to see what would happen. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess now, I started a Substack for my writing and instantly got like 10 subscribers the first week, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when it's people paying you monthly to just read what you're writing, it's like, wow, okay, that's interesting. And so I haven't put a lot of time into it, but I think you're right. I think a lot of this stuff is product based. We started an HOA magazine this year, and which is hilarious because, when you and I first started homesteading, everybody wanted everything online because we didn't want to waste paper, right? Okay, now it's the opposite 10 years later. Now nobody wants it online. They want to get away from the internet, but they want the paper product. And so it's interesting, to watch these trends change. And so for all of you listening and watching, I think if you take one thing away from this, it's that everything changes. Definitely become an expert in what you love to do. Justin, that's what Justin's done. He's living his life, his passion, because he made a business out of what he wanted to do. That's the American dream, right? The American dream isn't working a 9 to 5 in an office for somebody else and making them all the money. It's getting paid for what you love to do. But you have to put the work into it to get to that point, and as you can see with the trends that we were talking about, the various different products Justin's created, even with HOA, like Justin, you helped us. You probably don't even know this. You had texted me a few years ago when we started our HOA membership, and you were like, Amy, you have to do membership tiers. You're going to make more money with membership tiers. And I was like, no, I can't do that. Like, I can't. But he was right. And we did membership tiers, and you guys loved it. You guys loved the tiers. And so, it's just finding mentors, finding friends that are willing to share information with you guys, putting the hard work in there. I'm a mom. I'm a busy wife and a homesteader. And I stayed up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes trying to get these businesses off the ground because, there's no other time to do it. And so when you guys are looking at this, like I have a 9 to 5, I don't have time to do this. We all have the same 24 hours in the day to get this stuff done. You just choose how you want to do it. And so I just want to encourage you guys, you hear us doing this, but just know there's a lot of hard work and hard years that have gone behind it. You don't have to hire a VA tomorrow to help you do it unless you have the income, but it is worth doing. If your passion is to be at home on your homestead, on your farm, making money off of what you love doing, then find a way to do it. It's like Justin said, you either say, I'm not going to do it, or I am going to do it. I'm going to write down 10 things or 6 things on how I'm going to do it. And you might have to put in a year's worth or more of work to get it done. But I think it's totally doable. Justin was right. We've not even barely tapped into the peak of this homesteading movement. I mean, you mentioned The Chosen. There's actually another series coming out by the people that work on The Chosen related specifically to homesteading. And, so they're trying to use that platform. Do you know how many hundreds of thousands of homesteaders are going to be created just from a series like that? I hope that this podcast encourages you guys to realize the homesteading peak, we've not peaked. We're still just going up, and you can make a business off of this, and you just have to take the time to put into it and make your list and go from there. Right?
Heck yeah, for sure.
All right, Justin, do you have any more words for anybody listening before we get off here?
No, I think so. I mean, you nailed it right there at the end. Can't do any better than that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing your information and knowledge. And for just being a pillar like so many others in the homesteading community, and available to teach and talk about things. So we really appreciate having you this week.
This was fun. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, guys, make sure you check all the show notes below. Subscribe if you haven't already, if you're on YouTube and for the podcast. And until next time, happy homesteading. Hey, thanks for taking the time to listen to this week's Homesteaders of America episode. We really enjoyed having you here. We welcome questions, and you can find the transcript and all the show notes below or on our Homesteaders of America blog post that we have up for this podcast episode. Don't forget to join us online with a membership or just to read blog posts and find out more information about our events at homesteadersofamerica.com. We also have a YouTube channel, and follow us on all of our social media accounts to find out more about homesteading during this time in American history. All right, have a great day and happy homesteading.